Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome into another edition of PTN Extra. That's Mike Irwin. I'm Evan Kamko. Thanks for hanging out every Wednesday as we have been all football season. Now, everybody's all hyped up about basketball, and we'll talk a little bit about basketball later, but we'll reserve that for a certain show that's also coming out later today. We'll fill you in on that later, but Mike, we're here to talk football. It's what we've been doing the last 15, 16 weeks or so. And what's really interesting about this Arkansas team right now is it's in a little bit of limbo before the Memphis, we go to Memphis for the Liberty Bowl. We'll get into all of that in a little bit, but we're going to start with the transfer portal news. A couple guys last week when we did the show, there was about 3 of them that were ended up staying. As of right now, the guys who are leaving, the count is at 22. We'll pop up a list of all the notable names that you have to know who are in the portal. It starts with Luke Hasz, Josh Braun, TJ and Tevis Metcalf, Isaiah Satenia, Patrick Kudus, and there's even more if we keep going, which, again, the portal opened on Monday, so all of these guys entered their names officially on Monday when it opened, but, you know, there were the rumors and everything flying around with their agents and all of that last week, so we got to find out some of the names earlier than Monday. Also, Nico Davier, Jalen Braxton, Tykees Crawford, Malachi Singleton, and most recently, Brad Spence. He put his name in the portal about an hour or so ago. Again, this is all as of 3:55 on Wednesday afternoon when these guys are in the portal. More of that can change, won't change, but as of right now, we're going with what we have. Mike, when you hear 22 Razorbacks are in the portal, what do you think?
Well, it sounds bad, and the fans are reacting to it. The way this portal works, you really have to wait because this gets said over and over again, but it's not just who leaves, it's who comes back in. So it's, do you replace these guys with people that are as good or maybe even better? And right now, since the portal's just open and Arkansas is offering people, these guys that are leaving here haven't said where they're going. So it's not surprising that Arkansas hasn't announced, we're bringing these guys in. It will happen. This is, I want to go to the NFL because everybody talks about how this is pro football now in college football. No, it's not. This is pro football without any rules. The pro football people are smart enough, we're smart enough years ago not to get into this situation. What we've got is unrestricted free agency where every single year coaches start trying to steal other people's players and then try to keep them from stealing the players that they want to keep. And you have to turn around and in some cases replace a third of your roster. It depends on, you know, who you are, some more, some less. There is an answer coming for this. We keep talking about it. It's revenue sharing, which starts next spring, we think. That hasn't been officially approved. But people kept saying, well, but there'll still be NIL. It will be reduced. It won't be, right now, this is the way players get paid with NIL. With revenue sharing, the school itself pays you through the funds in their athletic department. And there's a cap on it, and Alabama can't go over the cap. You know, LSU can't go over the cap. A&M can't go over the cap. So it puts schools like Arkansas back in a situation. Arkansas has been behind in NIL money. This is no joke. This is not something, and people act like that there's just some terrible thing going on here where people won't give money to NIL. I could talk for an hour about why Arkansas got behind, but basically they started off 4 or 5 years ago following the NCAA rule and observed the rule, where a bunch of other schools just filed lawsuits and said, we're not going to follow these rules. Let's take, when you talk about rules, what we're hearing is there are very specific schools that have come in and grabbed these people. They've said, hey, if you come to our school, we'll pay you X amount of money. This is what you're getting now, we'll pay you this. And then when Arkansas sat down and talked to some of these players, the players said, hey, I can get this much at this school. And Arkansas's coaches have made business decisions, and in some cases, they went, we'll increase your NIL, but not that much, because we've got to go out and get other players. And if you want this much, let me tell you something, bub. I think I can go out and find somebody better than you for that amount of money. Now, you may say that's a game of chicken, you're taking a chance or whatever, but what surprises me is all of these fans that have been attacking this program and the coaches and saying, you don't know what you're doing. So the coaching staff is saying to these players, you want more money and we won 6 games? Have you been watching what's going on with our fans? They're not happy about that. Well, we're not happy either. We've got to be better. So we have to go out and get better players too. And now how do we do that if we pay you a bunch of big money and then have to pay them big money too? So what I'm being told is what's happening with the Arkansas coaching staff is not that they're sitting around being blindsided by all this. They just faced this from these players and went, okay, we're going to make a business decision. If you want to leave, we're not paying you that much. And there's nothing to say that you can't come back out of the portal. We were talking earlier, Trevin Brazil in basketball hit the portal, came back at the last minute.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean some of these players are necessarily gone. We've seen a player already go to the portal and come out of the portal, and some are saying he's going to go back in the portal, back and forth and back and forth. It's a crazy thing, but this has to end sooner or later because you cannot sustain a sport in which coaches don't know. I mean, if this continues, you're putting the players in the charge of the coaches because all they have to do if they don't like their situation is threaten them. I'll leave if you don't give me what I want. Anybody with a brain knows you can't have that. You got to have coaches running the team. The players may be important. We may want to pay them, which NIL does, but do you really want players to be in a position where they threaten coaches? Hey, I'll leave if you don't give me this amount of money.
Yeah, I think there's two sides of this coin, right? I think there's one side that you just talked about, right? Where, players didn't live up to the billing and didn't maybe get the money that they wanted. And the coaches, came back. And, I think a really great example of that is when we've talked to some of the young freshmen and seniors in high school who have come in and they want to make an impact. They know what happened. I'll use Selman Bridges as the example. Jacob and I went out to Temple, Texas, where he's from, sat down with the family, and they talked to us and said, hey, look, he knows that the road ahead was tough. We know what happened last year, but he wants to embrace that challenge and be the reason to turn it around. And he didn't maybe have the freshman campaign that he wanted to because of how good at times that the Arkansas secondary looked, and he could never break into it. But even though he couldn't break into it, he still had all this high expectations and being that high three-star, low four-star recruit that he was. And then now you turn around and you enter the transfer portal. And he never almost gave himself a chance here at Arkansas to even push for anything just because 1 year stopped when we're talking to the kid 6 months ago and he's sitting and we have the interview and he's saying, I'm gonna make my own way. I'm gonna do this because I want to. And now you have someone, and again, I'm using that as an example, but him leaving. But then on the flip side, you look at it on the other side and why all the fans are mad. There's 22 guys in the portal right now. What does that say in the greater scheme of things when it comes to the coaching staff? Is there a problem? Potentially. Is there something that we don't know? Most likely we're behind, that's all behind closed doors. We only know so much, again, of what's on social media and what we can find out from sources. But there could be a whole underlying problem that we don't even know about.
To me,
that's a bigger problem.
To me, it's a problem if these guys are leaving because they think the coaches are bad and Arkansas can't win. That's not what I'm being told.
Right.
Now, I've got some pretty good sources over there, and it's not just sources that, are on the side of the coaches. But I've been around the sport of football since before I ever played in high school, since I was a little kid. My dad ran a newspaper in my hometown, and the local high school football team was the biggest thing in the paper, especially during football season. I've heard this stuff discussed forever about the leverage that players have with coaches. And it was always from the standpoint of, you don't have any leverage. These guys were put in charge of this football team to make you better. Now, if you don't get better, they'll get fired. But you're not telling them what to do. And what I'm telling you is we've reached a point where it's almost the other way around. And you can't sustain something like that. I don't know how this thing's going to play out. But as a reporter that's done this for about 5 decades, I know that you don't form opinions till it's all over.
Right.
Now, I may be sitting here 2 months from now and looking how this portal thing came out and said, yeah, they really screwed up. They kind of played a game of chicken with some of these guys and didn't offer them what they wanted, and they lost them, and they didn't get the equivalent replacement. But until that happens, I'm going to sit here and wait. I'm not a fan, so I don't get as anxious about this as the fans do, but that's really all you can do right now.
And the reality too, if you look at the names in the portal, right, you have a lot of guys who are in the defensive backs who are gone in tight ends. That's where you got to think that they're going to try to plug as soon as possible. Obviously, offensive line too has some holes, and we can say right now 22 guys in the transfer portal, everywhere is going to have holes. You're going to have to plug guys everywhere, but that's the whole point of kind of bringing these young guys in, the highly young guys, letting them sit out a year. Because look, back 5-6 years ago, that was common, where you're going to sit a year, you're maybe going to redshirt in your freshman, sophomore year, and then finally, when you're an upperclassman, get the chance to play. Now, some of these kids in high school are expecting to break out their freshman year, And unfortunately, who are you going to start, right? A Hudson Clark who's got 5 or 6 years of experience, albeit fans, maybe that's not the best name to throw out, but someone like Hudson Clark who has the experience and has done it at the SEC level, or a young kid who's coming in and hasn't seen someone with the physicality of maybe a Trey Harris or a Luther Burden Jr. or Luther Burden III, I should say, guys who don't have that experience. So I think it's all, what do you do in the sense of, I think it's the right idea to have these young guys sit and develop and watch. But on the flip side, if they don't play, this is the reality of today. They can walk out like they already did, and nobody's going to stop them anymore because there is not rules set in place.
Well, first of all, and the parents, and we haven't even mentioned that they've got agents.
Oh, yeah.
When I first started hearing about this agent thing, I went, wait a minute, players can't have agents. And the answer I was given, well, they're NIL agents. They're not agents for football. They're just going to advise them on NIL deals. But the NIL turned into a telling them where to go. So this is in many cases an agent looking for, because they get part of this money, and what are they doing? It's just like an agent might tell a coach, take this job because, boy, they pay more money, and it might not be a good move for him. Parents sometimes aren't prepared for this. They listen to an agent, okay, this sounds good. There are so many people in the portal right now. Mm-hmm. I wonder if these people ever ask themselves, how many openings are out there?
Yeah.
Because there have stories have been written about guys that got into that portal and then ended up nowhere, just got flushed, or they had to go down to a junior college level, or a Division II. So again, this is a very difficult subject to talk about. It's complex. I believe that these kids, in many cases, are not old enough to be put in a position to make these decisions. Mm-hmm. They're not men. They're not 24-year-old guys in the NFL. When they get there, they will start learning how to make those decisions. But now they're making it when they're 17, 18, 19 years old. And it's just out of control. And it has to be addressed. Coaches know this. They're doing it behind the scenes. That's what this whole plan that they've been working on for 2 years. And it looks like it's going to, but still there's some congressional action that has to take place. And that hasn't happened yet. So you can't say that it's this new revenue sharing thing is reality till it is. But the people at Arkansas that I talk to think it's coming in April.
And here's the reality of it that I love that you brought up the NFL. In the NFL, these guys are playing for their second contract. You're not playing for the first contract because that's no money. Now you take away pretty much the goal of any college kid right now if they want to get to the NFL and they want to make the big bucks and be one of those top guys in the NFL is to get that second contract. Now, you can essentially get that second contract where, take Jalen Johnson of the Chicago Bears, got his payday, 25, 26 years old, one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, worked for that play. Basically, if you're as good as him, you can get that second contract right now, maybe not to the extent, but in college at least, you can get a couple $1 million when you're 19 years old, 20 years old, after 1 year in college. So to your point, it takes everything away. And now we kind of switch gears, but not, because we look forward right now. Arkansas is going to take on Texas Tech in the Liberty Bowl. But like we've said, with 22 guys in the transfer portal, who is going to play in this game? And that's something that was brought up on the teleconference a couple of days ago by Trey Biddy. I'll let you listen to this soundbite of him asking head coach Sam Pittman that exact question.
And obviously the transfer portal is not open, but there have been players that have entered the portal, a couple of your starting guards, 3 of your top 4 receivers. Just the challenges of overcoming some depletion heading into this bowl game against Texas Tech, and how you address those.
Coach, we're not taking those questions tonight. Coach.
Okay. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
We prefer not
to about the roster.
Take those issues tonight.
Okay. It's about the roster heading into the bowl game. But
there we go. For some really quick context right there, it was said before in the beginning not to ask anything about rosters. It was mainly just about the bowl game and being invited to the bowl game. But I think Trey had a really good point of asking, what's this roster going to look like for the bowl game? Because that's one of the big things. If you can't field a roster, you can't play in the bowl game. Now, we expect Arkansas to play in the bowl game. There's no question. They accepted the invite a little bit before. But I thought that was a really interesting question that Trey asked, because it's kind of what everyone's thinking right now of what's this Arkansas team going to look like when you get to the bowl game. So I'll turn it to you. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do think there are backup people in some cases that are going to get a chance to play. And I don't know that Monte Harrison, for instance, this 29-year-old former Major League Baseball player that was behind Andrew Armstrong all year, so he didn't play much. we might get to see him for the first time. But whoever they put out there are people that they can put in place. And as Sam Pittman put it, this has happened to us before 2 years ago, and we managed to win. Doesn't mean they'll survive it this time. Texas Tech is a pretty formidable opponent, but what's going to be interesting about this game is that Arkansas is not quite as productive offensively as Tech, but it's close. It's not close defensively. But when you take away all these defensive starters, maybe it is similar. I don't know. So I can't even imagine how this game is going to go. Right now, Texas Tech would have the advantage. I only know that only one starter has been mentioned. I've got buddies out in Lubbock that follow that team a lot closer than probably anybody here in Arkansas, and they tell us there's 2 of them gone. Well, okay, 2 compared to what, 8, 9?
Yeah.
That's a big difference. But this could change as we move forward. But right now, I would say Arkansas faces a real challenge in this thing.
Yeah, and it's a bowl game that's filled with a lot of great storylines. Number 1, the roster, the transfer portal. Number 2, who are some of these young guys that are going to step up and get that opportunity now that maybe they didn't have it during the regular season, now in the postseason again. And what's really interesting, too, is I learned a couple days ago, postseason does not impact their redshirt status.
That's right.
So people who are redshirted can actually play in the postseason. There's a lot of talk, and I'll take Arizona State as a great example. If you watch that game, they lost a wide receiver, had somebody who they redshirted, but he was able to play and keep his red shirt because the postseason doesn't count. So maybe we'll see some redshirt guys who haven't played all season, who are young, get a chance and get an opportunity to shine in this Liberty Bowl. And again, you have another really cool storyline is the Texas Tech head coach has an awesome connection to Arkansas. I'm sure we'll talk all about that when the bowl game actually comes up. But when it actually comes to the Liberty Bowl, I think Sam Pittman said something that maybe not a lot of Hog fans were too happy about when he said on the telecast that this is a game that they pushed for. They were really excited because they think it's a good opportunity to stay somewhat local and for people to only drive 5.5 hours over to Memphis from at least Northwest Arkansas, where we are, to have the ability to play in this game. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, he's hoping that I think they're probably not going to get a lot of people from Northwest Arkansas. But you're so close when you get down to Little Rock and beyond, and it's an I-40 all the way over there. It's a quick trip, even though it starts at 6 o'clock at night. Let's say the game goes to 10:30. You still get home 1 o'clock in the morning. It depends on how far away you are. And so it's a one-day trip. And so I think a lot of people will do that. If you want to go over there and spend the night, the Beale Street thing is fun. It's not the best bowl trip I've ever seen, but it's not bad. The Texas Tech people that I talked to, they're kind of excited about it. They don't play in this thing the way Arkansas does. So some of that has to do with how often you've been in the bowl. And Arkansas has been in this Liberty Bowl more than any other bowl, way more than any other bowl. So Hog fans are tired of it. There's no question that some probably won't go. But I can see what Sam Pittman is saying. I mean, this won't take a lot out of us. We'll drive over there, work out a couple of days, play the game, and then be back here and we'll start looking ahead to next year. But you need to win that game. You know, it is important. It sets the tone, you know, going into the off season.
Yeah, really important to get that win. It'll be fun to watch who steps up. Maybe we'll see our last bits of Isaac Tesla, you know, some of these older guys who won't be back next year, Hudson Clark, these guys who are looking to wrap their Arkansas careers with a win. That game, again, on the 27th, we'll have all the coverage you need from Memphis starting on the 26th. Mike, let's shift gears before we end. We'll talk a little bit about basketball. Big win last night for Coach Cal and company, taking down Michigan 89-87. The Wolverines had a look at the end of the game, couldn't end up winning the game. They missed it just short on the shot. But this was a game that Arkansas was down 16, up 18. It was kind of a game of swings and a game of runs. 31, I think, was the total swing in the game at one point. But for you, how big was this not only for Arkansas, but for Arkansas fans? Who do you think had it more? Who do you think needed it more, the fans or the team?
I think it was pretty equal. I think they both needed it. The fans needed this because with all this news about football, they were bummed out. So now you got something, maybe this basketball team is better than we thought they were because they were getting pretty frustrated. But if you really followed this team and you listened to what Cal said, everything he said is pretty much developed. As they've worked together more, their shooting has improved. As some of these injured players like Jonas Adu have started to finally play, it's made a bigger difference. So, you know, you saw a little bit, and I would say starting in the second half till about 9 minutes to go in the game, that's the best part of basketball I've seen with this team all year. They were almost perfect. we saw them do everything. They were shooting, they were rebounding, they were feeding the ball inside, they were stealing the ball. And this is when they went from being down 4 to up 17. That's a pretty big jump. So it shows what they can do. But Cal was kind of reserved when it was over because he still ended up basically saying, the tone of his press conference was, we're still not there. He said, we made a lot, he was talking to them because that was on there too. And he said, you know, we almost blew that lead, but we didn't. You know, but we didn't. And everybody was happy about that. And you're taking little baby steps. You don't blow, because what did they do at TCU? They blew the lead.
Yeah.
You know, so we're taking baby steps, but we're getting better. They've got, 3 games left now before they play Tennessee? Mm-hmm. So you can rest Big Z, because I think he's still got a little problem with it. And then maybe you're totally healthy when you go to Tennessee. But the thing everybody needs to understand, and this is what I would say about SEC basketball, we just saw what happened in football. It's going to be worse in basketball.
Yeah. Because
there's virtually nobody that can't beat another team in the SEC in basketball right now. They're all good. Missouri has a big win over Kansas. I mean, you're just seeing this happen everywhere. This Arkansas beating Michigan, that is a big deal for the SEC, and they talked about that on the telecast on ESPN. The SEC, and it was said many times on that telecast, this is absolutely the best league in college basketball right now. Well, that may sound good, but if you're in it and have to try to win in it, it's also an issue. So I'm not sure how this is going to go. I think that a lot of these teams are going to beat each other up.
To quote Cal after the game, woof.
Yeah, woof.
Woof. Woof. It is basically SEC baseball. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And hey, if you're a big basketball fan and you're sitting at home and want a full in-depth deep dive into Arkansas basketball, come back to our YouTube, come back to our website, because Courtney Mims' brand new digital show, Full Court Press, that debuted last week. She's dropping an episode today recapping all you need to know about Arkansas's big win over Michigan, and she has a very, very, very special guest on the show that I think will make a lot of Hog fans really happy. So that should drop some point this afternoon as well on our YouTube and our website. So be sure, if you like basketball and you like last week's edition, it only is going to get better from here on Full Court Press. We're really excited to watch that. But that is going to do it for PTN Extra. For Mike Irwin, I'm Evan Kamiko saying so long. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you right back here next Wednesday on PTN Extra.